My name is Julia Whitman. I'm 38 years old, and until one terrible afternoon, I believed I knew exactly what family meant. If someone had asked me a week before my husband's funeral what I feared the most, I would have said losing the love of my life. I never imagined that only a few hours after burying him, I would be standing outside my own house with my 2 children, homeless, heartbroken, and staring into the faces of the people who claimed they loved their son more than anyone else. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was realizing that my husband's parents had been waiting for him to die. They smiled during the funeral. They hugged me while everyone was watching. They cried beside his casket. Then, before the flowers on his grave had even begun to wilt, they tried to erase my children and me from his life forever. What they didn't know was that my husband had seen everything coming, and before cancer stole him away, he had left behind one final plan. A plan that would change everything. My husband, Mark Whitman, was buried on a cold gray morning in Pennsylvania. Rain fell lightly as friends, neighbors, and co-workers gathered around the cemetery. I held our 9-year-old daughter Lily close while our 16-year-old son Noah stood beside me, trying so hard to look strong. Mark had fought cancer for almost 3 years. He never complained. Even during chemotherapy, he still found the energy to make Lily laugh and help Noah with homework. He insisted on driving us to the lake every summer, even when walking from the parking lot left him exhausted. That was who Mark was. He believed every day was worth living. Before he passed away, he squeezed my hand and whispered something I'll never forget. "Promise me you'll stay strong for the kids." I promised. At the time, I thought he was only talking about grief. I had no idea he was preparing me for something far worse. After the funeral ended, relatives slowly disappeared. Friends hugged us goodbye, offering prayers and promises to check in later. Mark's parents, Richard and Elaine Whitman, acted perfectly. Richard shook hands with guests. Elaine accepted sympathy with graceful tears. If anyone had looked at them, they would have believed they were grieving parents devastated by the loss of their only son. I almost believed it myself. We drove home in silence. Lily had fallen asleep against the car window. Noah stared outside without saying a word. Every mile felt heavier than the last. When we finally pulled into our driveway, something immediately felt wrong. Richard's black SUV was parked across the entrance. Elaine stood on the front porch. Neither of them looked surprised to see us. Richard held a key in his hand. The same house key Mark had carried for years. I stepped out of the car. "Richard." He didn't answer. Instead, he calmly locked the front door. My stomach tightened. "What are you doing?" He slipped the key into his pocket before looking directly into my eyes. "This house belongs to the Whitman family." For a moment, I thought I had misunderstood him. "I'm sorry." "What?" "You heard me." Elaine crossed her arms. "You and the children should stay with your sister until everything is settled." I blinked. "What are you talking about?" "This is our home." Richard shook his head. "It was Mark's home." Noah stepped beside me. "It's Mom's house too." Richard looked at my son as though he were speaking to a stranger. "Stay out of grown-up business." I felt my heartbeat pounding inside my chest. "Richard, we just buried your son. And now it's time to handle reality." Reality. That single word hurt more than I expected. For 11 years, I had stood beside Mark through surgeries, hospital visits, endless medical bills, and nights when we honestly didn't know if he would survive until morning. I never left him. Not once. Yet somehow, only hours after his funeral, I was suddenly being treated like I had never belonged. Elaine looked down at my simple black dress. "Mark supported you long enough." I stared at her. "What did you just say?" "Has gone now." Her voice was cold. "We're not responsible for taking care of you." Lily woke up inside the car. "Mom," she sounded frightened. I wanted to comfort her, but I couldn't move. Everything around me suddenly felt unreal. Noah stepped forward. "Don't talk to my mom like that." Richard's face darkened instantly. "You'd better watch your attitude. She's my mother, and I'm your grandfather." "No." Noah answered quietly. "My grandfather would never do this." Before I could react, Richard raised his hand. Richard's hand shot through the air so quickly that I barely had time to react. The sharp crack echoed across the quiet neighborhood. Noah stumbled backward into the porch railing, one hand covering his cheek. Lily screamed from the car, her frightened voice cutting straight through my heart. For a second, everything around me went silent. I rushed toward Noah. "Oh my God, Noah, I'm okay," he whispered. Even though tears had already begun forming in his eyes. No 16-year-old should have to comfort his mother on the day his father was buried. I turned toward Richard. "You hit my son. He disrespected me." Richard answered without the slightest hint of regret. "No," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "He defended his mother." Before I could help Noah stand completely, Elaine stepped closer. I thought she wanted to apologize. Instead, she reached for my left hand. "What are you doing?" She grabbed my wedding ring. I instinctively pulled away, but grief and exhaustion had drained every ounce of strength from my body. The diamond scraped painfully across my finger as she forced it off. "That belonged to my mother," Elaine said coldly. "It has always been a Whitman family heirloom." I stared at the empty place on my finger. 11 years. For 11 years I had worn that ring. Mark slipped it onto my hand beneath a huge oak tree overlooking the lake where he proposed. He had smiled nervously and said, "It isn't the biggest diamond in the world, but I promise it'll always represent the biggest promise I'll ever make." Now his mother held it like I had stolen it. Lily ran toward me crying, "Mom, why did Grandma take your ring?" I couldn't answer, because I didn't understand it myself. The woman who once hugged me every Sunday after church now looked at me like I was nothing more than an unwanted guest. Richard pointed toward my car. "You have 10 minutes. I looked at him in disbelief. "For what?" "To leave." I laughed once, not because anything was funny, because my mind simply couldn't process what I was hearing. "You're throwing your own grandchildren out of their home." Richard folded his arms. "They'll adjust." Those 3 words changed everything I believed about him. Noah wrapped one arm around Lily while glaring at his grandparents. "You should be ashamed." Richard ignored him completely. Neighbors had started peeking through their curtains. A delivery driver slowed his truck while passing our house. Everyone could see something terrible was happening. No one knew what. I realized arguing wasn't going to help. Mark had always told me something about difficult people. "You never beat someone like my father by shouting louder. You beat him by staying calmer." So I took a deep breath. "Come on, kids." Noah looked confused. "Mom, we're leaving." Richard smirked. "I knew you'd finally understand." No, he had misunderstood completely. I wasn't giving up. I was simply refusing to fight a battle without knowing all the facts. We climbed back into the car. Lily cried quietly in the back seat. Noah kept looking toward the house through the rear window. I should have hit him back. "No." I answered softly. "You did the right thing. Just slapped me." "I know. He deserved it. I know. But your father wouldn't want that." Noah leaned his forehead against the window. "I miss Dad." Those 3 words shattered what little strength I had left. "So do I." Rain began tapping against the windshield. I rested both hands on the steering wheel without starting the engine. Where were we supposed to go? My sister lived almost 2 hours away. Hotels were expensive. Our entire life was inside that house. Family photographs, school awards, Mark's clothes, his notebooks, his voice messages, everything. Then I remembered something. The brown envelope. 2 months before Mark died, he had asked me to promise something. We had been sitting together in his hospital room after another round of chemotherapy. He handed me a sealed envelope. "Geely, I don't want to talk about goodbye. You have to listen." His voice had become weak. "If everything goes the way I hope, you'll never need this. And if it doesn't, then promise me you'll open it only when you truly have nowhere else to turn." I promised without asking another question. After his death, I placed the envelope inside the glove compartment and forgot about it. Until now. With trembling hands, I opened the compartment. The brown envelope was still there, untouched. Exactly where Mark had left it. My fingers shook as I broke the seal. The first page was covered in his handwriting. The moment I saw it, tears filled my eyes again. It felt like hearing his voice one last time. "Geely, if you're reading this, then the people I feared have finally shown you who they really are." My breathing stopped. Don't argue with them. Don't beg. Don't try to convince them they're wrong. Instead, call attorney Rebecca Hale immediately. Below the message was a phone number. Then another sentence. "Everything is already protected." I quickly turned the page. The next pages contained copies of legal documents, property records, trust agreements, business ownership certificates. Everything carried my name: the house, the lake cabin, Mark's shares in the equipment company, savings accounts established for Noah and Lily. None of it belonged to Richard or Elaine. None of it. At the bottom of the final page, Mark had written one last note. "I know my parents better than anyone. If they ever choose greed over family, let the law answer them, not your anger." I could barely see the page through my tears. What did Dad say? I smiled through the pain. "He protected us." "What do we do now?" I wiped my eyes. "Exactly what your father asked." I picked up my phone. My hand still trembled as I dialed the number. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3 rings. A calm professional voice answered. "Rebecca Hale speaking. My name is Julia Whitman." There was a brief silence. Then her voice became surprisingly gentle. "Julia, I've been expecting your call." Rebecca's words froze me in place. "I've been expecting your call." For a moment, I couldn't even answer. What do you mean?" She spoke calmly, almost like she had rehearsed this conversation many times before. Mark visited my office several months ago. He prepared instructions in case his parents tried exactly what you've just described. Tears rolled down my face. Even after everything he had gone through, even while fighting cancer, my husband had still been thinking about protecting us. He knew. He hoped he was wrong. Rebecca replied softly. But he wanted to make sure you and your children would never lose everything if he wasn't. I looked toward the house. Richard was standing behind the living room window with his arms crossed. Elaine was beside him. They were watching us, waiting for us to leave. They threw us out, I whispered. They hit my son. Rebecca's voice immediately changed. My father-in-law slapped Noah. There was a brief silence. Then her tone became firm. Julia, stay exactly where you are. We're sitting in the car. Good. Do not leave. Do not argue with them. And do not try to enter the house. I'm calling the local police right now. I'll be there within 20 minutes with certified copies of every legal document. My heart finally began slowing down. For the first time all day, I didn't feel alone. Thank you, I whispered. No, Rebecca answered immediately. Thank Mark. He spent months making sure today wouldn't destroy you. The call ended. I rested my forehead against the steering wheel. I wasn't crying because I was weak. I was crying because even after death, my husband was still protecting us. Noah looked at me. What did she say? I smiled for the first time since the funeral. We're going home, he frowned. But Grandpa locked us out. He doesn't own this house. Noah blinked. What? He never did. I handed him the first page of Mark's letter. He read it silently. His eyes grew wider with every sentence. Dad. His voice cracked. He knew. I nodded. He knew. Lily leaned forward from the back seat. Does that mean we don't have to leave? I reached back and squeezed her little hand. No, sweetheart. This is still our home. This she smiled through her tears. I knew Daddy wouldn't let anything bad happen. Her innocent faith nearly broke me. Outside the car, Richard noticed us talking. He opened the front door and walked halfway down the driveway. So, did your sister say you could stay with her? I rolled down the window only a few inches. I'm not calling my sister. His confident smile remained. Then who? I'm calling Mark's attorney. The smile disappeared. It vanished so quickly I almost missed it. What attorney? The one Mark hired before he died. Richard exchanged a nervous glance with Elaine. I watched panic slowly replace confidence. What lawyer? He repeated. The lawyer who has every document you never expected to exist. Elaine suddenly walked closer. Julia. Her voice sounded completely different now. We don't need lawyers. We're family. A family. The word almost made me laugh. An hour earlier they had thrown their grandchildren into the street. Now they suddenly remembered we were family. No, I answered quietly. Family doesn't do what you just did. Richard forced a smile. There's been a misunderstanding. There wasn't. We're all emotional today. No. You assaulted my son. You stole my wedding ring. And you tried to make your own grandchildren homeless. His jaw tightened. You should watch your accusations. They're facts. He looked away. For the first time Richard Whitman looked uncertain. 15 long minutes passed. Nobody moved. The rain slowly became heavier. The neighbors continued watching from behind curtains. Some stood outside pretending to collect their mail. Everyone sensed something extraordinary was unfolding. Then we heard sirens. One police cruiser turned onto our street. Seconds later, a silver sedan parked behind it. A woman wearing a navy blue coat stepped out carrying a leather briefcase. She looked confident, calm, professional. Rebecca Hale. She didn't even glance toward Richard. Instead, she walked directly to my car. She opened the passenger door. Julia. I nodded. She smiled gently. I'm Rebecca. She looked at Noah. His cheek was still bright red. Her expression hardened instantly. You must be Noah. Yes, Mom. I'm sorry we had to meet under these circumstances. Then she turned toward Lily. And you must be Lily. Lily nodded quietly. Rebecca crouched beside the car. Your daddy loved both of you more than anything in this world. Lily started crying again. Rebecca hugged her gently before standing back up. Then she looked at me. You did exactly what Mark wanted you to do. What now? Rebecca closed her briefcase. No. She turned around. And we remind everyone exactly who owns this house. She walked confidently toward Richard and Elaine. The police officer followed beside her. Richard folded his arms. Who exactly are you? Rebecca stopped only a few feet away. My name is Rebecca Hale. I'm Julia Whitman's attorney. Richard laughed loudly. This doesn't concern lawyers. Rebecca slowly opened her briefcase. It absolutely does. She removed a thick stack of certified legal documents. Then she looked directly into Richard's eyes. Because the property you're standing on, she paused, belongs to Julia Whitman. Richard laughed again. That's impossible. Rebecca calmly held up the first document. Let's see what the law says. Rebecca held the document in front of Richard without the slightest trace of emotion. This is the original deed. She handed a certified copy to the police officer before looking back at Richard. The house was transferred into the Whitman family trust 8 months ago. Richard folded his arms. My son bought this house years before he married her. That's true, Rebecca answered. But 6 months after his cancer returned, Mark legally transferred ownership into a protected marital trust. She pointed toward my car. Julia Whitman is the trustee. Richard's confident expression began to fade. That's impossible. Rebecca calmly pulled out another document. Here's the county recording. Then another. And here's the notarized trust agreement. Then another. And here is the video certification signed by the bank. She looked directly into Richard's eyes. Everything has already been verified. Silence. For nearly 10 seconds, nobody spoke. Even the neighbors watching from their windows seemed frozen. Finally, Richard laughed again. But this laugh sounded different. Forced. Desperate. My son would have never done that. Rebecca didn't blink. He loved his family. He was protecting them. Elaine stepped forward. Mark loved us. Rebecca nodded once. Less. He loved you enough to leave you the Florida condominium. Elaine frowned. What? Rebecca pulled another folder from her briefcase. He also established an annual living allowance for both of you. Richard looked confused. What allowance? You never read the estate documents. We never received them. Rebecca looked at him quietly. You were invited to attend the estate signing. You declined. Richard's face slowly lost its color. For the first time, he realized he had made a terrible mistake. The police officer stepped closer. Mr. the Whitman. Richard looked at him. Yes. Did you physically strike Noah Whitman? Richard hesitated. It was discipline. The officer shook his head. He's 16. He's not your child. And according to these documents. He glanced toward Rebecca. This isn't your property. Richard opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The officer wrote something into his notebook. Then he walked toward Noah. Young man, Noah stepped out of the car. Can you tell me exactly what happened? Noah looked at me first. I nodded gently. He took a deep breath. My grandfather told us to leave. I defended my mom. Did you touch him first? No, Baha, did you threaten him? No. Were there witnesses? Nearly every curtain on the street moved. One elderly neighbor slowly raised her hand. I saw it. Another voice came from across the street. So did I. A third neighbor nodded. I watched everything. Richard looked around in disbelief. People he had greeted for years. People who attended church with him. People who shook his hand every weekend. Were now witnessing against him. The officer finished writing. Thank you. Then he turned toward Richard. Sir, based on witness statements, this incident will be included in my report. Richard's shoulders sank. He finally understood this wasn't going away. Meanwhile, Rebecca noticed something else. Elaine's right hand remained inside her coat pocket. She smiled politely. Mrs. Whitman. Elaine looked up. Would you please remove your hand from your pocket? Elaine hesitated. I don't know what you're talking about. Rebecca's eyes narrowed. The wedding ring? Elaine's face changed instantly. The ring belonged to my mother. Rebecca calmly opened another folder. None. It belonged to Mark Whitman. She slid another document toward the officer. Mark specifically listed this ring as Julia Whitman's personal property. It is mentioned by serial number, insurance value, and accompanying photographs. Elaine's breathing became heavier. You can't prove that's the same ring. Rebecca smiled slightly. The insurance appraisal includes microscopic identification marks inside the band. She looked at the officer. Would you ask Mrs. Whitman to surrender it? The officer extended his hand. Ma'am. Elaine slowly removed the ring from her pocket. Her fingers trembled. She reluctantly placed it into the officer's hand. He inspected the engraving inside, then handed it to Rebecca. Rebecca walked toward me. Without saying anything, she placed Mark's wedding ring back into my palm. For several seconds, I simply stared at it. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about diamonds. It was the last promise my husband had ever placed on my finger. I slid it back on. It fit perfectly. Tears blurred my vision again. Rebecca smiled softly. I wanted you to keep wearing it. I whispered. I never wanted to take it off. Behind us, Richard looked completely defeated. His voice was barely audible. So, we're really leaving? Rebecca closed her briefcase. No. You are being removed from property you do not own. The officer nodded. You'll have 30 minutes to collect your personal belongings. You'll be escorted at all times. Richard looked at me one last time. You planned this. I slowly shook my head. No. My husband did. And he planned it, because he knew exactly what kind of people you would become after he was gone. Richard couldn't answer. Neither could Elaine. The people who thought they had won had just lost everything. But I had a feeling. This wasn't the end. Something inside Rebecca's briefcase told me there were still secrets Mark had never shared with anyone. And whatever those secrets were, they were about to change all of our lives forever. The police officer gave Richard and Elaine exactly 30 minutes. Not a minute more. They weren't being arrested, but they were no longer welcome on the property they had tried to steal. 2 officers followed them inside while Rebecca and I waited in the living room. For the first time all day, I was standing inside my own home again. It looked exactly the same. Mark's favorite coffee mug still sat beside the sink. His reading glasses rested on the end table. His jacket still hung beside the front door. Everything was exactly where he had left it. Except he wasn't there. The silence inside the house hurt more than the confrontation outside. Lily wrapped both arms around me. Mum? Yes, sweetheart. Can we stay here forever? I knelt beside her. This will always be your home. She smiled through her tears before running upstairs to hug the teddy bear Mark had given her years earlier. Noah remained downstairs. His swollen cheek had turned purple. He stared toward the staircase where Richard and Elaine were gathering their belongings. I don't understand, he whispered. What don't you understand? They never loved Dad the way I thought they did. I placed my hand on his shoulder. I believe they loved him. Then why? I looked toward the ceiling for a long moment. Sometimes, people love money more than they love people. Noah lowered his eyes. I'll never become like that. I hugged him tightly. I know you won't. A few minutes later, Rebecca joined us in Mark's home office. She carried another envelope. This wasn't inside the trust documents. It was hidden inside the safe. My heart skipped. Another letter. From Mark. She handed it to me. The outside says, she smiled softly, open only after my parents leave. I laughed quietly through my tears. That sounds exactly like him. Rebecca nodded. He thought of everything. I carefully opened the envelope. Inside was another handwritten letter. My beautiful Julie. If you're reading this, then Rebecca has already done her job, and my parents have shown you exactly who they really are. Tears immediately blurred the words. I'm sorry you had to experience this. I prayed every day that I would be wrong. But I spent my entire childhood watching my parents choose money over kindness. When I became sick, they stopped asking how I felt. Instead, they kept asking what would happen to my company, my savings, and my house. I closed my eyes. Everything suddenly made sense. The strange phone calls, the private conversations Mark refused to discuss, the worried look on his face whenever his parents visited. He hadn't been hiding secrets from me. He had been protecting me. I continued reading. Julie, if they tried to remove you from our home, then I need you to promise me one last thing. Don't waste your life hating them. Justice is enough. Spend your energy loving Noah and Lily instead. That will always be the greatest revenge. I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. The room fell completely silent. Even Rebecca quietly wiped away a tear. What an incredible man, she whispered. He really was. Just then, one of the officers walked into the office. They're ready. Rebecca and I walked outside. Richard and Elaine stood beside 2 suitcases at the end of the driveway. Neither looked anything like the confident people who had greeted us only an hour earlier. The neighbors were still watching. No one pretended not to notice anymore. Richard looked directly at me. You've humiliated us. I shook my head. No. You humiliated yourselves. You tried to throw your own grandchildren into the street. You slapped your grandson, and you stole from your son's widow. You made those choices. Not me. He didn't answer. Elaine finally stepped forward. For a moment, I honestly thought she might apologize. Instead, she quietly asked, can we at least see the children? I looked toward Noah. He shook his head. Then I looked upstairs. Lily was standing behind her bedroom curtain, watching silently. They're not ready. Elaine lowered her eyes. I never thought things would end like this. Neither did I, but unlike her, I wasn't mourning the loss of money. I was mourning the loss of the family I believed my children had. The officers escorted Richard and Elaine to their car. Before getting inside, Richard turned around one last time. You'll regret this. Rebecca answered before I could. No. You'll regret underestimating your own son. Richard climbed into the SUV without another word. Seconds later, they drove away, and just like that, the driveway became quiet. The nightmare was finally over. Or so I thought. Rebecca turned toward me. There's one more thing. What is it? She smiled. Mark left instructions for today, but she reached into her briefcase one final time. This time, it wasn't another letter. It was a small velvet box. Inside was a silver key. The lake cabin, I asked. She nodded. He wanted today to be the last day you ever associated this house with pain. He wanted you and the children to spend the weekend at the lake. He already paid every expense months ago. My heart broke all over again. Even after his death, Mark was still taking care of us. 3 days later, Noah, Lily, and I drove to the cabin. The moment we arrived, everything felt peaceful. The lake reflected the afternoon sun. A bird sang from the pine trees. The porch still smelled of fresh cedar. Inside, I found another surprise. The refrigerator was fully stocked. Fresh flowers sat on the dining table. A framed family photograph rested beside the fireplace. Rebecca smiled. Mark arranged for all of this before he passed away. Lily hugged me tightly. Daddy knew we'd come here. Yes, I whispered. He knew. That evening, we sat together on the dock watching the sunset. For the first time since the funeral, no one cried. No one argued. No one felt afraid. We simply remembered the man who had loved us enough to protect us even after he was gone. Months later, Richard tried to challenge the trust in court. He claimed Mark hadn't been mentally capable of signing the documents. But Rebecca presented medical evaluations, video recordings, notarized records, and testimony from witnesses. The judge dismissed the case in less than an hour. Richard lost. Again, not only did he lose the lawsuit, the judge ordered him to pay substantial legal fees after determining the claim had no merit. From that day forward, neither Richard nor Elaine ever contacted us again. The house remained ours. The lake cabin remained ours. Mark's business shares provided a stable future for Noah and Lily. Years passed. The Noah graduated from college with honors and became an attorney inspired by Rebecca's courage. Lily fulfilled her dream of becoming a pediatric nurse, carrying the same kindness her father had always shown to others. As for me, I never remarried. Not because I couldn't love again, but because the life Mark and I built together had already given me everything I needed. Every spring, we still visit the lake cabin. We plant fresh yellow flowers beside the porch. We tell stories about Mark. We laugh far more than we cry. And every time I look at the wedding ring still resting on my finger, I remember the final lesson my husband left behind. Real love doesn't end when someone dies. Sometimes, real love becomes the shield that protects the people left behind. And that is exactly what Mark Whitman gave us. Not just a home, not just an inheritance, but a future no one could ever steal. Summary of the story: Julia Whitman's life changed forever on the day she buried her beloved husband, Mark. While she was still overwhelmed with grief, Mark's parents betrayed her in the cruelest way possible. They forced Julia and her 2 children, Noah and Lily, out of their own home, believing that with Mark gone, they could seize everything he had worked for. What Richard and Elaine Whitman never realized was that Mark had anticipated their greed long before his death. During his battle with cancer, he quietly worked with attorney Rebecca Hale to create a legal plan that would protect his wife and children. He transferred the family home, the lake cabin, and his business shares into secure trusts, ensuring that no one could ever take them away. When Richard assaulted Noah and Elaine stole Julia's wedding ring, they believed they had already won. Instead, their actions exposed their true character. Rebecca arrived with certified legal documents, police officers restored Julia's rights, and Richard and Elaine were removed from the property they had tried to steal. Even after Mark's death, his love continued to protect the people he cared about most. His careful planning gave Julia and the children not only a safe home, but also the freedom to rebuild their lives. Richard's attempt to challenge the trust in court failed completely, and justice prevailed. Years later, Noah became an attorney inspired by the courage and integrity he witnessed that day. Lily became a compassionate pediatric nurse, carrying forward her father's kindness. Julia never forgot Mark's final gift, not money or property, but the security, dignity, and love that no amount of greed could ever destroy. What we can learn from this story. This story reminds us that true love is shown through actions, not words. Mark understood that protecting his family meant preparing for a future he might never see. His wisdom and selflessness became a shield that kept his wife and children safe when they needed it most. It also teaches us that greed can destroy even the strongest family relationships. Richard and Elaine valued wealth over compassion, and in the end, they lost not only the legal battle but also the trust and respect of their own family. Most importantly, the story shows that justice may not come immediately, but honesty, preparation, and perseverance can overcome even the darkest betrayal. Choosing dignity over revenge often becomes the greatest victory of all. Thank you so much for listening to this story. If you enjoyed this emotional journey, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss future stories of family, justice, betrayal, and hope. Your support means everything and helps this channel continue bringing you powerful stories like this one. Until next time, take care of yourself, treasure the people who truly love you, and remember, the greatest inheritance is not wealth, It is the love and protection we leave behind for those who matter most.